What's the funniest thing to say before anesthesia kicks in? Viewers Edition. Well, I sure am glad we're revisiting this topic in a Viewers Edition, if only for the fact that I have such an easy time saying the words anesthesia, anesthetic, and anesthesiologist. So another 20-minute video of stories littered with these phrases is exactly what I was hoping for. Wish me luck. Story 1. My anesthesia story was, as I was waking up, and I have zero memory of this, I was apparently very loudly yelling. I guess I was a virgin and wanted the whole staff to know. Don't know why inebriated me thought it was so important. I was 19 at the time. I'm 21 now. And the few memories I have, as I was still very out of it, but a little more awake, was I woke up and the tube was down my throat. I began to bite down on it, wanting it out. Then I stopped myself, reminding me it was expensive, so I began to mumble to get their attention. I went KO the next time. I woke up for a short time. I asked the nurse if that was how it felt to be on Mary Jane. She said no, it was closer to heroin or something like that, some stronger drug. Third time I woke up, I began to cry out in pain, but was mumbling, ouch, pitifully to the tech guy, as they had to retake the photos the first time I was out, but second time, pain of them moving my leg around woke me up. They had to take the immobilizer off and move my leg around. I wasn't happy about it. Turned over to my side and saw the image and just mumbled, cool. I was so mesmerized by the image, but they took it away very fast, or maybe it seemed that way. I was very entertained. I also had a dream about a hot nurse or doctor as I came out of anesthesia, copper hair, vibrant green eyes, and checked notes off. None of the staff had anybody like that. No clue who the heck I dreamed up, but somebody was cute. Story 2. I had to have surgery on both my legs because my Achilles tendon in your body, which is also rated as the third most painful thing a human can experience if it snaps, so I had surgery to prevent me having to experience it snapping. Also, I was a toe walker since I learned how to walk, which tightened them way too much. The last thing I remember saying before going under from the anesthesia was, "Do I need to count?" Because my dad said they told you that when he was getting his wisdom teeth out. Then everything went black. Also, apparently the hospital workers told my mom that I would wake up at max 20 to 30 minutes after the surgery. My dumb butt decided to stay up till 4 a.m. the day of the surgery. I woke up over 2 hours after surgery. I also felt like I was actual doo-doo. They told me not to eat the day before and the day of my surgery, so I was practically starving because I usually snack throughout the entire day and had to resist doing that for a day and a half. Thank God they gave me food after I finally woke up. Edit because I woke up like literally 2 hours and 30-something minutes after the surgery, because the last thing I remember is saying, "Do I need to count?" When I woke up, I remember mumbling to myself, "Answer me." Then I remember hearing my mom laugh because she was sitting in a chair next to the bed I was in. Because this comment got me thinking, I looked up some of the most commonly cited injuries or conditions ranked as most painful. The list includes kidney stones, cluster headaches, childbirth, penile fractures, and gonadal torsion, youch, shingles, amputation resulting in phantom limb pain, severe burns, bone fractures, and pancreatitis. Apparently also stepping on a stonefish or getting stung by bullet ants are also considered some of the most excruciating experiences. But also because it is the strongest and largest tendon in the body, when the Achilles tendon ruptures or tears, it is said to be one of the most painful injuries in the world. Okay, I guess I'll stop complaining when I occasionally stub my toe. Story 3. The only time I got in a school fight, I was so scared I blacked out before it started, and came to just as it ended. I was 11, the other girl wouldn't stop bugging and trying to bully me. Avoiding her and telling the teachers didn't work, so when she started up one day as I was leaving gym class with my sneakers in hand, I got so frustrated I just threw one shoe in her direction and she charged towards me, even though it didn't hit anywhere near her. A teacher told my mom that even though school policy is to suspend students for fighting, I guess this was still the zero tolerance days, he was glad I stood up for myself. I got only a day in suspension, as it was the shortest time allowed, and I think she got 3 days. Another blackout story, Canada Day, July 1st, age 15. I was riding my bike all day and rode a few amusement park rides like Ferris wheel and a centrifugal force ride. On the way back home on a downhill slope, I tried balancing without holding the handles. By the time I realized I was losing control, it was too late to regain it and I blacked out. I awoke as I was being loaded onto the ambulance and my mom hurriedly approached. Apparently, I managed to tell someone my home phone number while I was out. I only had a small arm fracture. Story 4. I've been through numerous surgeries as a child, but it wasn't until my gallbladder being removed did something odd occur. If I remember correctly, the night before surgery, I needed to poo, but because of the massive amount of opiate-based painkillers keeping me from doubling over in pain, I couldn't. Then I started to stress on the chance of my bowels opening up upon the surgical table, sedated and pooping. This thought consumed me as the hours passed. So it's time to rock, and the last thought I had before my slumber was, I really hope I don't soil myself. I start coming to, and I'm being wheeled to my room from recovery, and the thought came back, and I asked the nurse in a whisper, did I soil myself? I didn't, but that was the first time I carried a thought through surgery. Story 5. I just remember during my wisdom teeth extraction that I sat there for about 2.5 minutes watching the doctors and nurses prepare for the operation, and I started getting real nervous, and eventually my panic peaks as I can see they're almost ready to begin. And I say, trying to keep my voice level, Doc, is this stuff working? I'm not feeling tired. The doc spins around and gives me this quizzical look, and one of the female nurses turns around and says, don't worry, it'll work in a second. I respond, okay. The last thing I remember is thinking to myself, dang, I hope I don't say anything inappropriate about her breasts. And then I wake up, the doctor gives me the go-ahead, and I hobble out of the hospital with my dad, hop in the car, and fall asleep. Story 6. I got my wisdom teeth out fairly recently, and it was my first and only time going under anesthesia. They put me on gas, which to me didn't really seem like it was doing much at the time, and then they injected some stuff into my arm. I remember seeing everyone coming into the room and acting like they were about to start the operation, which put me on edge a bit, since I felt like I was still far from passing out. I asked, you're not going to start doing anything while I'm still awake, right? I was assured nothing would happen while I was still awake, and with that reassurance I said, oh, okay, and everything promptly went dark, not even a second later. Next thing I knew, I was in the car heading home. It's wild how quickly that stuff kicks in. Story 7. I don't know if I was on anesthesia, but I think I might have been. But I had just gotten out of surgery for getting my appendix removed, and I was in the recovery room. My mom and grandpa were right next to me, and I was given a popsicle and a cup. I kept licking the popsicle and putting it in the cup because I didn't want to hold it. One time I missed the cup on accident and then tried again. Then at some point I told my mom, "Mom, don't let it melt," with a straight face, and then went back to sleep. It's one of those things where you had to have been there to find it funny. Haven't really been on anesthesia, only laughing gas. If it's the same, whoops. Story 8. I had an infection underneath a filler. My new dentist, without telling me why I was in pain, decided to put 5 shots of Novocaine, highly numbing medication, into my gums, then told me why I was in pain. I replied with, "Well, looks like the pain's gone now." He laughed. During the procedure, I was so dumb that I complained to the dentist while he took a minute to clean his drill. His tools were creating a horrible smell from drilling into my filling and the remaining portion of the tooth. His reply was to pause, look at me, and say, "With what happened to you and why you're here, if all you're going to do is complain about the smell, then I must be doing pretty well." Story 9. I remember being confused when I woke up after the wisdom teeth removal because of the stuff that was stuffed in my mouth, making it hard to talk. Turns out it was blood-soaked cotton. But I was being propped against a wall when I started to come back around, and then Mom walked me to the car, walked me to bed, and I was out for a few more hours. After that was just a week of suffering because the pain meds weren't working all that well. Then one of the stitches didn't dissolve and started getting infected. This thankfully didn't escalate because I was able to burst the infection and knock the stitch loose, but it was super gross. Story 10. When I got my wisdom teeth out, I didn't say anything funny, but did when I was being briefed. Don't remember exactly what I said, but I do remember I was making light of the worst-case scenario that it's possible, but highly unlikely to pass away from the operation. I only remember starting my countdown, a sea of red-orange, and waking back up in my operating seat after the surgery. It felt like less than a minute from passing out to waking up. Dang, that's trippy. I wonder what was the sea of orange. If I go under again for whatever reason, I might just say, Bravo 6, going dark. First, I gotta work on a good Captain Price impression. Story 11. I actually stayed awake like 2 minutes or so after they injected everything. I was already in the operation room and watching them while they were preparing everything. I was even talking to the doctor, and yeah, then I woke up. The second time I was gone in like 3 to 5 seconds. After the second one, I was only in hospital for waking up, and after I woke up, I talked to the doc and my parents and everything, but I did not remember anything. For me, I was just waking up and asked my parents when the doctor will come, and they were telling me that we had a conversation 2 hours ago. I was a bit confused. Story 12. I had a very handsome, sweet Russian gentleman as my surgeon for many procedures I had to have in the course of a couple of years. For one procedure, he walked beside the gurney as they gave me Versed and wheeled me into the OR. I told him as they lifted me onto the table how I had a massive crush on him since the first appointment. The last thing I remember was him going, with a look of shock on his face. When I woke up, I asked him if I'd said what I thought I did. He laughed and said it was just the meds. It wasn't, though. I don't know why, but thinking about a Russian doctor, my mind went straight to the villain from Sonic the Hedgehog. I guess because his name is Dr. Robotnik, or Dr. Robotnik, if I really ham it up. But Robotnik actually means worker or slave in Polish, apparently, which could explain his liking for using robots and enslaved animals for minions. But I also found this out. Mike Pollock, the voice actor for Eggman, or Dr. Robotnik in the games, claims that the character's father is Polish, but his mother is Russian. So for the sake of this story, I'm going to assume it was indeed Dr. Robotnik, and I can therefore agree that is one handsome dude. Story 13. Right before I was put under for my RPLND surgery, cancer surgery that takes place in the stomach area, abdomen, I asked the doctor if he didn't mind giving me a six-pack. The whole theater roared with laughter. After I woke up, doctor said, "How are you feeling?" I said, "Sore and disappointed." Doctor asked, "Why are you disappointed? Surgery was a success." I responded, "I asked for a six-pack and you left me with a bloated beer belly." My doctor and the nurses in the ICU were beside themselves with laughter. All recovered and in remission 7 months later. Story 14. I had broken my finger about 3 years ago and had to have surgery to put in pins. When the doc tried to put me under, he gave me a shot in the IV and waited a bit and said to me, "You should be going out right about now." I laid there looking up at him and told him, "I don't think so." He laughed and said, "Well, I guess you're getting a double cocktail," where he finally got it right. Then I woke up as they finished and were preparing to move me to recovery. If I'm not mistaken, I think they did actually used to use alcohol for surgeries to numb the pain a bit, or at least to distract the patient's brain enough. For some reason, I have this image in my head of soldiers drinking whiskey when they're about to have a bullet taken out or a limb amputated, though really that could just be something that they do in the movies. Feel free to let me know in the comments if there's any legitimacy to this. Story 15. When I got my wisdom teeth removed, I had it as a goal to count to 10 when they put me on gas. Only issue is, well, they lied to me and said it was only oxygen. Promptly, I was out like a light. However, about halfway through the surgery, I remember waking up and beginning counting. In Russian. I live in Kentucky. Anyway, I can only imagine what the doctors were thinking when a 17-year-old kid from Middle America started counting in Russian. Must have thought I was a sleeper agent. Maybe if the girl from the earlier story tried this tactic, then she'd have had better luck at sparking romance with the Russian doctor. Alas. Story 16. No joke, I have accidentally combined alcohol and edibles before, and it wasn't half as potent of a trip compared to laughing gas and the numbing agent they use when pulling wisdom teeth. It's seriously trippy because you feel very little, if anything, and you barely can feel any pressure. For reference, I was put under laughing gas when I had to have my remaining baby teeth taken out because they didn't fall out naturally. Being under laughing gas is basically being the closest possible point to being unconscious, where your thoughts are extremely foggy. Story 18. I remember when I was 8 and had to get surgery on a part of my throat because of an ear infection. After I woke up, I pretended to still be asleep for about 4 minutes before a nurse said, "She's been asleep for an unusually long time." And then I instantly pretended to wake up and said, "You guys didn't even put me to sleep. What are you talking about, lady?" Followed by a frightened nurse and laughter from the rest of the room. I wasn't allowed to have pizza rolls, though. Story 19. I tried to speed run the countdown, but failed. I asked what number I got to, and he said 3. Another time, I told her, "You can't make me," and started from 1, I made it to 3. Another time, I counted randomly, made it to 33. Another time, I started randomly saying words. I made it to the mountain. My last surgery, I said, "We should agree this surgery should be free since it's my 10th one." As he is injecting the meds, he said, "Yep, it's completely free." Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.